Hey everybody, it's Rory from A&S Gear, and we're upstairs at the table like we normally do. We're gonna try something a little different though. We're gonna start putting out videos from my bench downstairs where I normally do all of my work and servicing guns. We're gonna start a line of videos that is going to help you become a more confident, better paintball player when it comes to managing your own gear. How to fix your guns, common problems that I see with equipment, how to fix tanks, loaders, all those things that we always get questions about. Hopefully these videos can help you solve your own problems and not be relying on someone else to do for you. So I'm trying to help you out, make you a more confident, better paintball player. So watch the videos. We're gonna upload all sorts of content. Thanks for watching, ansgear.com. All right, so we're here and we've got a Spyder. This is a Spyder RT in front of me. The RT really is not the important part, but the customer sent this gun in for a tune-up. Tune-ups on Spyders are very straightforward, very simple. They typically require really just 3 different O-rings and just a lot of cleaning. This one, they said the customer sent it in because it was sputtering and not shooting up to velocity. Now that could be a couple different reasons for not shooting to velocity. You could have the wrong tank on it, or your input pressure is too low, or it could be just very dirty, or your mainspring could be worn and old. Now this gun looks like it's had a lot of wear to it, a lot of use. So we're gonna start taking it apart and try to figure out what's going on with the gun. So the first thing, I'm gonna just get this off of here. We're gonna look underneath it. You can see there's a ton, there's paint, and it's kind of sticky, gooey paint, which leads me to believe that the gun has either been sitting for a long time or it hasn't been cleaned, and maybe it was tried to have been used when it was this dirty. And if you try to use a gun that's this dirty, things aren't going to move right inside of it. The bolt and the hammer will be sluggish and slow because there's so much dirt and oil and paint in there, and you'll have velocity issues or sputtering issues. It's definitely possible. One thing, when we start looking at older Spyders, this detent right here is cracked along the top. Well, they don't make these anymore. So we're hopefully gonna save this one. We'll try to reuse it. When we put it back in, we won't tighten it down too bad. And we'll hope for the best as for how long it will hold up. But yeah, there aren't this shaped detent. It just doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. So let's get that off of there. There's a ton of paint up in this. This is like a Shock Tech feed neck. So we'll try to clean some of this out of here. Oh yeah, look at that. That's just covered in pink paint. Another thing, the problem with dirty guns, if you're using a dirty gun, you can chop paint in it too because it's not moving fast enough. You're gonna have problems. This Spyder that we're looking at today, like I said, does have the RT trigger on it, which isn't something we're really gonna be focusing on. We're really gonna be focusing on cleaning out the inside and making the gun as good as it can be for what it is, and getting it up and running. Hopefully we'll get it up and running. All right, so let's get the back end of this off of there. Let me move this out of the way. Let me put all these back together. This is a Kingman gun, so our O-rings, not our O-rings, our Allen keys will be metric. Let's get this here. We're gonna pull the bottom off. That'll allow us to get the frame down with without having it attached to anything. All right, let's get that out of there. I'm not gonna unscrew the front actually. I'm just gonna remove it. So after I've got it detached from the frame, I can pull this. This isn't the front frame screw. This is the front vertical ASA screw right there. And that will allow me to slide this off the front, exposing our cup seal and our front block ASA right here. Now this O-ring that sits underneath here, these are all just size 15 urethane O-rings. If you get a leak coming from the front of the gun here, this area, not the breech area right here, like coming down the breech or up the feed neck, but coming from around this area, it's typically those size 15 O-rings right there. So we'll put some new ones on. That'll sit right there. This is our cup seal. Cup seal looks good. Doesn't look like it has a lot of damage on it. It is loose, and so we will replace that because that is part of the service. We're gonna just keep this to the side for now, and then we'll go ahead and remove the frame. Frame screw, remember metric screw heads. If you start using standard Allen keys with this, you could run into a problem with eventually stripping them out. So don't, what is this nonsense going on right here? Oh, that was my fault. That's the wrong one. That's to take the front of the trigger frame apart. We don't want to do that. We're going to keep that the way it is. Unless you needed to get inside and change out part of the trigger frame, you would take that one out. We don't want to do that. We just want the front frame screw, which is going to allow that to pop off there. This looks like it's... some people will look at this and say it might have been painted, but this is just the coating that they used on these, and it's cracking and falling apart. Which is okay, it just happens over time. We're gonna remove these off of here, and then we're gonna put a battery on it. With all old Spyders, this is another problem that you run into with older Spyders. They were designed to run on a different battery, a 9.6 volt battery, not a standard 9 volt battery. So you want some sort of battery like this right here. It says 9.6 volts on it. We're gonna hook this up. I'm gonna see what we get here. Gun is powering on. Both sensors are working. Gun does shut off, does turn on, safety does work. All right, so this seems good down here. There's not really much you can do with these anymore. This is just kind of the way they are. I'm gonna kind of just clean around in here as much as we can. There's no paint or anything in it. It's just old and old. I really can't even clean much out of that. All right, so we know this is good. I'm just gonna set this aside, and we'll get back to this later. We can focus on the meat and potatoes of the setup right here. I'm gonna wipe down the outside of this real quick. So let's get our bolt out. Our bolt looks relatively clean, which is good. That means that this upper tube right here isn't covered with paint. We're gonna pull our bottom piece out. And look, that's rusted, but it's still working. You can see how far in the velocity adjuster was screwed. It's like way down in there. They were trying to max the velocity out on this thing. But let's just see. Let's get the spring out. Let's get our bumper out. Well, the bumper is so important in these guns. This piece right here, so important. Just for overall longevity of the gun. This is just crazy dry right here. There's no oil on this. This is going to stick when it tries to slide. Plus this O-ring is just old right here. So we're going to replace that as well. We'll get to that, but let's get the last part of the inside out of the gun. So our valve body, let's get this out. We'll take out our valve screw, and then we're going to use something long. We don't want to use anything sharp. We want to use something long to push that out of there. If you don't have like a piece of macro line, you could use the end of a squeegee. And we want to pop that out of here, just like that. Now you can see on the valve assembly, there are two different O-rings. The front O-ring that is, this sits inside here like this. So the one that is closest to the front needs to be a hard urethane O-ring, a 1590. So the same O-ring you would put on the top of your tank. The rear O-ring that sits at the back can be a softer version of 1570 Buna, but the front one you want to be a hard. The pressure coming in from the front is usually very high on these guns, 700 to 850 PSI. So you want this O-ring to be able to stand up to that pressure coming into the gun. So it needs to be a harder urethane O-ring. So let's do that. Let's look at our Spyder real quick when this is assembled. And we can point out some reasons or things that happen in the Spyder and the reasons that they happen. So inside of our gun, our bolt pin locks into our striker like this. This sits underneath the gun like this. We don't really need these parts for now. This sits like this. This sits like this inside here, right? When you cock the gun back, the striker has a little notch cut into it, and the striker notch catches on the sear, which is this part right here, right? Like that. And the spring that's behind it right here is compressed down when this slides back. When you pull the trigger, this thing moves out of the way. It allows the hammer to slide forward under spring tension. The spring pushes it back forward. Because it is hooked up to the bolt right here, they move together as one unit like this. It comes forward. We're going to disconnect that, make this easier. The hammer is going to run into the valve. Now on the back side of the valve right here is a bunch of stored up air, because this sits like this inside of here and then inside the body of the gun. So the air coming in is being held right here. And the valve is closed. The spring that's right here pushes the cup seal closed against the valve, which causes it to hold the air right here. When the hammer hits it, it opens the valve, allows the air to escape around, come up through the top, and shoot the ball out, as well as some of the air. See this flat cut on the poppet guide right here? If you look closely, you can see that there's a little bit of a hole right there where that flat part sticks through. Some of the air goes up to push the ball, but some of the air squeaks through and comes out of that little hole into this area right here. It hits the front of the hammer. This O-ring seals this lower cavity down here, and it causes the hammer to come back. That pressure causes the gun to recock and shoot the ball at the same time. So, problems. If this is not cycling properly back and forth, this O-ring could be bad. We want to replace this O-ring and make sure that it is oiled. Do not grease it. You want to oil it. Grease will slow it down. You want to oil it lightly, and that should solve that problem for a sputtering gun. If you have a leak coming through the top or through the front, it could be this O-ring at the front. It could be the cup seal right here, not sealing the front. So you want to replace the cup seal, replace the O-rings. I would replace both of them since you have it open, and then go from there. If we're not achieving velocity, we want to make sure the gun is clean and properly oiled, as well as the mainspring right here, which is pushing the hammer forward and striking the valve and opening it. We want to make sure that this isn't old, that it hasn't been cut to make lower velocities, and that it is functioning properly. So that's where we want to be on that. So we're going to start rebuilding this gun. So I'm going to change out this O-ring right here. There is a very specific, this O-ring is hard. This is the wrong O-ring, whoever put this on here. We sell it on the website. The part number is ORG001, and it is a specific hammer O-ring for the Spyder. When you put it on there, you'll notice that it is not tight, that it does shift around on the hammer a little bit, and that is okay. It's not meant to be solid on there. So that goes on there. We've got these parts we'll put back together in a minute. We're going to take that out of there. We're going to replace this rear with a new 1570 Una O-ring. We're going to replace the front one with the new 1590 urethane O-ring. Because that front O-ring on the striker was urethane and hard, that could be the reason that the gun was not achieving velocity. So there's lots of potential reasons why. Now we're just going to clean this up a little bit. Through there. All right, so that's done there. That's taken care of. We changed that out. We're going to pull this O-ring off of here and replace this one too. And while we're at it, let's clean the groove that rides in, just because it's old and dirty. You don't want that kind of goo hanging out underneath your gun. Clean that where it sits inside of there. Get a new O-ring on here. Let's see if I can clean this up at all. Not really. That's okay. It doesn't, all it does is lock everything in place. So I'm going to put a little bit of acetone on that. I'm going to try to clean this out. That'll make it easier for that pin to come through. Let's see if this can clean any of this off. It's pretty well rusted right there. You can see it's coming off a little bit, but it's not really something that you need to worry about too bad. All right, now clean that lower section or upper section. Whenever you use a swab or something like that that's fuzzy, you always want to make sure that you look inside and look for any fuzzes in there, because they will get stuck and they actually can cause leaks sometimes. All right, I'm gonna go grab a new cup seal real quick. All right, so I picked up an extra cup seal right here. We're gonna remove the pin out of this one. We're gonna just set it to the side. Even though we technically don't need to replace it because it wasn't leaking, it is part of the tune-up that we're doing. We'll put that one back on there. We're going to take a tiny, tiny bit of Loctite. Just put that on the stem. That'll help potentially keep it from unscrewing down the road. Now we're going to get a hold of this and turn it. Now, whenever you're dealing with the cup seal, you never want to do anything to the face of the seal right here. If you're going to grab a hold of it for any reason, you need to get it on the side like we are right here. And you never want to use anything that's got teeth on it. It's going to have to be a flat surface. The inside of my pliers right here, flat jaws on them. I'm just trying to get a hold of it so I can give it a little bit of a snug. I don't need to overdo it. I just want to turn that. And I'm going to leave it like that. All right. Now, start putting it back together. We are going to, seeing as though our valve never moves. It's not going anywhere. We're going to grease our valve up. This doesn't need to slide back and forth. It doesn't need to move. So it doesn't, we're not worried about it sticking or getting, like being sluggish because of the grease that's on it. All right, now I'm going to take some and I'm going to put it on the inside here as well. And then we're going to bring this in and put it in. Remember, the large opening is what our pin goes through, or guide. The small opening is what's going to face towards the striker. And then on this particular one, we see we've got the same size opening on both sides, so it does not matter which one is facing up or down. We don't need to use the cup seal to do this. I'm just using it as something to push. We could again use like the end of our squeegee rod, or you can use whatever you want to put that inside there. Just nothing sharp. You don't want to damage anything. Line up the hole, put our valve retainer in just till we feel it touch, and that's it. You don't really want to crank on it at all. Put our cup seal back in. We're going to put a little bit of grease on this, and then we can connect that up and use our screw that we removed to get that into position. Tighten that down. Now we're going to put our assembly back in place. And again, for this one, we are not going to use grease. We are just going to use paintball oil. I think I got some gold cup here. Put it on there. It is okay if it's on there too. Perfect. So we're gonna pop that up. We're gonna drop this in, and I'm just gonna shake it and get some of that grease or oil all around in there. I'm gonna let it drop back out, and I'm gonna line my hole up to the top. I'm gonna slide that in. And then I'm going to bring my bolt in, and I'm going to push that through, make sure that it is in the right spot. Everything's together in there. We can take our spring, put it in. Now we might change our spring because we don't know if it's bad or not. We're going to put our guide in and our post in. Somebody's shooting a gun over there. And there we go. And now we'll get the frame on. All right, so we're back at it. Put a sweatshirt on because I'm cold. We've got everything back together up here. Sounds good. Good movement through there. We're gonna get our frame mounted back up. And then we will test it out. Frame screw, frame screw. And here we go. Now, a lot of the stuff that we've talked about in this gun carries over to a lot of other guns as well. There's some other stuff we'll get into with like the Blitz style guns down the road. We'll do some stuff for that. But as this gun sits right here, Spyders, they're all the same, really. Now, there are some Spyders that have regulators built into them. And when one of those come along, then we will look at that one as well. But as far as just servicing the valve, the striker, the hammer, the cup seal, all of those things, it's very straightforward. Cock it back, pull the trigger. Let's put our detent back on, and again, we talked about this one being cracked already. We're just gonna have to hope for the best and just not over tighten it. You might put a little super glue on that, but it's really not going to hold. Super glue will crack right away. Let's get our feed neck back on. There's a towel on there. Put this back through here. All right. Let's grab a tank and then we'll test her out. Now, tanks, again, need to be high pressure for this kind of setup right here. These Spyders require high pressure inputs in them. So either your CO2 tank or a compressed air bottle like this one that has a high pressure output, 800 to 850, usually will get the job done. I'm gonna screw this on, and then we're gonna just listen for any leaks. Everything sounds good. Don't hear any leaks coming out. What am I looking for? I'm gonna take this real quick. And I know this is not the right muffler for this. It's got a cocker thread on it, but I'm just gonna kind of hold it up against it. I am going to bring our velocity all the way out. And at this point, when I go over to the chronograph to check for velocity, if the velocity is low, then really my only problem or only downside or only cause, I guess is the right answer for their right explanation, would be my mainspring. Because I've got a high pressure bottle, I've got plenty of pressure, everything's clean, everything's lubricated. So the only thing that could be causing it at this point would be a weak mainspring. So if that's the case, after I go check it, I would replace the mainspring with a stock version and see where we are from there. So again, this carries over to almost all Spyder style guns, Zodins, the Vertexes from D3S, but you have to then build upon this. If your gun, your Spyder clone or Kingman clone has extra parts on it, a regulator, or things that will make this slightly different or more complex, then we'd have to go on to that. But from a base standpoint, these guns are very simple to service if you just understand how they work and where the problems can arise from. Hope it helps. We'll see you on the next video.